Despite the playful and colorful imagery of Happy Game, this is no happy game at all, but rather the dark tale of a man reliving his worst nightmares as a child and overcoming 3 of his greatest fears and losses in a drug-induced dream that warped his perception beyond anything he could have ever imagined. But in the end, would he make it out alive from his mind-melting trip, or would his demons prove too difficult to overcome? In order to better understand the events that took place in Happy Game, let's analyze some of the heavy imagery and symbolism present throughout the unnamed protagonist's series of nightmares. When we first meet our main character, we see a young boy in pajamas coloring before getting into bed. Note that this boy has hair. As he drifts into a deep slumber, we see that his appearance changes from a young boy in pajamas with hair to a bald boy wearing a black outfit. This aesthetic change represents the transition from a simple memory to the beginning of the nightmare sequences to come, the first of which begins with the boy being gifted a soccer ball. However, once the boy interacts with it, he is reminded of a time when his cherished ball was taken away by a cruel bully who laughed as he snatched it from the younger, weaker boy. He then returns to his nightmare and solves a puzzle with some of his favorite toys and joins them in a celebratory dance before he is overwhelmed by a cacophony of harsh sounds that cripple him in fear. The first symbolic representation of how the hallucinogenic drugs are altering his senses and perception. He eventually encounters a ghastly teddy bear that holds within it a cyclopean skeleton that removes his own eye and shows the boy a doll that is being ripped in two. The doll eventually transforms into an image of the boy, and he is also violently stretched apart, representing how the protagonist is torn between the harsh realities of adulthood and coping with some of his worst childhood memories. The boy moves on to the next series of puzzles and activates the horn of a toy train. The train spews a series of bubbles that have a number of interesting contents, including a mushroom, a deformed rabbit foot locket, and a copy of the Necronomicon, to name a few. The mushroom represents psilocybin and serves as further evidence of the hallucinogenic nature of the nightmare the protagonist finds himself in. The deformed rabbit keychain typically brings good luck, but based on the memories of the boy's childhood, it seems he wasn't the most fortunate. So the deformed state of the rabbit foot symbolizes the alleged bad hand he was dealt in life. The Necronomicon is a reference to H.P. Lovecraft's Book of the Dead, which now provides even further insight on the severity of the effects of the drugs the protagonist ingested and alludes to the possibility of a foreboding death, but more on this later. The boy eventually solves the twisted puzzles and reaches a field of spikes where his cherished ball is resting on the very ledge. In a brave gesture, the boy takes a leap of faith, grabs the ball, and plummets towards the spikes. However, before he is impaled, he finds himself in the comfort of his childhood room, complete with a full head of hair and the ball he bravely fought for in his nightmare. However, a dark form takes the ball from him and forces him to recall a memory of losing his bunny doll on the pier. It seems this sinister smiley face is a manifestation of the adult consciousness that has been tainted with negativity due to the constant reminders of great losses. After overcoming several new gruesome puzzles, the boy finds himself in a circular room full of smiley faces. The shape of the room is symbolic of how the world is full of inescapable fake forced smiles. The grotesque smiley-faced creatures demonstrate how selfish and evil intentions can be hidden behind a seemingly innocent exterior. This is yet another psychedelic representation of the unforgiving realities of adulthood presented through the skewed lens of a scarred child. Several puzzles later, and we get yet another metaphorical depiction of the toll the drugs are having on the protagonist's cardiovascular system, namely his heart, as each of the solutions requires that a series of hearts beat until they explode. Once the grotesque smiley-faced creatures are defeated, the boy's bunny rabbit doll is returned, and he finds himself back in the comfort of his bedroom, now with both his ball and his doll. But yet again, the dark form forces him into the next nightmare sequence, which features his most loved childhood friend, a dog named Kuti. Early on in the dream, Kuti is captured by an invisible creature that is revealed to be a demented adult concealing itself behind an ominous-looking smiling mask. At this point, the young boy's eyes are almost entirely glazed over, and the hallucinations are even more reminiscent of impending doom. The boy then remembers playing in the woods with Kuti and losing his best friend after a game of fetch. The memory fades and the boy finds himself in a field of demons carrying out a cannibalistic ritual where they consume the boy. This scene depicts how the drugs have quite literally consumed the protagonist and tainted his purity. The drug-induced nightmare continues and the boy revisits a forest similar to the one where he lost his beloved Kuti. However, he seems to be below the trees, revealing the twisted roots. This scene serves to reinforce that the consumption of drugs has been rooted into his lifestyle after years of abuse and is unlikely to ever change for the better. The young boy grabs a strange plant and is grabbed by a giant beast. This beast, however large, looks incredibly frail and hides behind an eerie mask. After it removed its mask, a number of tendrils greedily reach for the plant. Once the young boy feeds it, the giant smiles as if satiated and levitates into the sky. This scene represents how the need to use can be perceived as a hunger so great that it takes priority over all else until satisfied. Once the giant takes its drug of choice, it smiles and lifts off into its new high. The young boy descends even deeper within himself and is subjected to an onslaught of sensory overload as his synapses fire off wildly. It is here that the boy enters the threshold of death's door and his soul gradually begins to leave his corporeal form as depicted by the ball of light leaving the lifeless husk. As the boy ventures further from the realm of the living, he is reminded of the many attempts he has taken on his life by the hanging creatures who began to chase him. The boy suddenly reunites with Kuti and enjoys this brief moment of respite before the dark form plucks him from this falsehood and plunges him down below. The boy travels down the blood-red stream and sees versions of himself bound and haphazardly stitched together, not only an allegory to his failed journey in his adult life, but also a literal depiction of the drugs flowing through his body, ravaging his system along the way. They say that in the final moments, your entire life flashes before your eyes. Perhaps that's what the protagonist witnessed in this disorienting spiral of flashing images. What we do know for certain is that the young boy, now a man, revisited his childhood home and found memories and treasures too great for him to bear. The drugs served as a barrier to help ease the pain, but unfortunately welcomed him into an eternal slumber that he would never awaken from. The demons within released themselves to search for another susceptible vessel, and in the end, the scarred little boy desperately hoped for a happy ending that would never come. And that's all for this video. Until next time, it's the Inhuman One signing out.